We already had one prayer. Let's have one more quick one. Dear God, use me tonight as an instrument of thy will. Speak through me so whatever results that you desire here tonight will be accomplished in all things. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen. Amen. I asked for that reading for a reason. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? I didn't come here looking for a job, a buddy, or a girlfriend. When my job, when my freedom, when my family, and eventually when my life depended on me not drinking, I drank. Is anybody in here like me? Okay. That's the reason I pray before I introduce myself from behind the podium. I ain't here because of me, I'm here because of God and you. That prayer reminds me of two things that are vital and crucial to me staying here. First and foremost, the reason that I'm in Provo is to do God's will, not mine. And it also serves to remind me that He is in charge here tonight. And as always, thank God, I am not. Good evening. My name is Kent Coleman. I'm an alcoholic. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. It's great to be back in Utah. I have spoken in Utah in the past, down through the years. I think the last time I was here was in Park City. It's a beautiful, beautiful state, beautiful area, and wonderful AA. My parents raised me right. I want to demonstrate that. I always say if my mother was here, she'd get up and say, you didn't turn out right. But anyway, I want to thank RJ. I want to thank the committee, all those who had anything to do with me coming here. It is an honor and a privilege to participate in the life-giving, life-changing, life-saving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at any level. At my home group, I'm the setup guy. I get there hour and 45 minutes early, set up the tables and chairs, get out the literature, and I help the coffee guy. At any level, how can you possibly outgive somebody outgive a fellowship that restores life to the living dead? How can you possibly? But it's a lot of fun trying, ain't it, right? So anytime I'm asked to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous, anything, I always say thank you. So thank you for all of those who had anything to do with me coming out here. I have a sobriety date. It's May 18th, 1992. It is the only one that I have had. That don't make me better or worse than nobody in here. It's just the reality of my story. I have a home group. It's the Tuesday night sink or swim men's group in Sandusky, Ohio. We get 70 guys on Tuesday night in that room. There's sponsoring going on in there. Bill Wilson said the chief responsibility of an AA group is an adequate presentation of the 12 steps. That's what we do at Sink or Swim. And we tell all the new guys, we get a lot of treatment guys that come to our meeting, probably about 20, 30 every week. I know y'all get tired of hearing about the steps, but it's all we got. We don't have anything else, right? So I love my home group, right? And the message of Alcoholics Anonymous is carried there with enthusiasm. And I have a sponsor. He knows he's my sponsor. He ain't too crazy about it. It's Bob D in Las Vegas. Bob D has been my sponsor, I think, now for about almost 15 years. I was raised in Alcoholics Anonymous by the late Bill Finley in Lorain, Ohio, and Kenny Bombalicki in Cleveland, both of whom died with over 50 years in here, both of whom gave their life to this simple program. When they say, if they got what you want, then you do what they do. What is it that I saw that they had? I wanted to live life like they lived life. I wanted to react to life like they reacted to life. I wanted to be useful to other people like they were useful to other people. And so they said, if you want to want what we got, then do what we do. And they said, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Kenny was sponsored by Neil Craven. Neil got sober in 1944. Neil was sponsored by Bob Smith, who was a doctor in Akron and a co-founder of AA. I sat with Neil for 12 years until he died. my first 12 years sober, I went to Cleveland every Thursday. On Thursday mornings, I worked midnights at the Ford plant. There was a meeting in Cleveland called West Side Thursday. West Side Thursday was where Neil's crew hung out. Vic Z, 1941, Resnick, 1940. These guys were still alive when I got sober. These are guys that are in AA literature. I didn't know that. I just thought they was a bunch of nosy old men. They used to ask me the stupidest questions. I'm sitting at the table with guys who were in AA when it was 5 years old, and they're asking me questions like, they didn't ask me like, what's on page 86 and 87? Where are you speaking this week? How many are you sponsoring? They didn't ask me none of that. You know what they used to ask me? How many times did you say please and thank you today? Did you give your boss 9 hours of work for 8 hours pay? Did you thank your wife for your dinner last night? Did you hold the door open for anybody today? What they were asking me is how you living, son. Alcoholics Anonymous is not about the acquisition of knowledge and intellect. It's about the application of principles until the rubber meets the road. My first sponsor used to say, recovery's in your feet. It ain't in your head and it ain't in your mouth. Then until that happens, then I'm just a guy still living the same way with a whole lot of knowledge that I didn't have before. So that's how I was sponsored in Alcoholics Anonymous, in a very, very simple way, by people who were around here. In my first home group, which was the Friday night Venice group in Sandusky, which started out as an Oxford group meeting in 1938. There were 4 guys who got sober between 1944 and 1946 in that group. I'm going to tell a little quick story about that because we don't talk about groups a whole lot. I'm going to tell you a quick little story about that home group. I got Bill and Kenny to sponsor me. They said, you got 1 week to get a home group. Now, I was 3 months sober and out of my mind, right? Don't drink, go to meetings. That was me, right? And I'll talk about that later. I didn't get better. Some of y'all know what happened, don't you? Right? And I didn't, thank God, pick up a drink. But I got sponsorship. They told me to get a home group. So I liked this Friday night group. Because I thought Friday night be a good night because I used to howl on Friday nights. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Right? Friday was payday, right? So I get this Friday night home group, right? And I signed the book, the home group roster. And there was a guy sitting there, God rest his soul, Herb Brady. Herb Brady looked at me and he said, son, he said, we ain't interested in your autograph. He said, we want your service. He whipped out these keys. He said, here are the keys to the coffee locker. He said, next week, this was an 8:30 Friday night speaker meeting. He said, next week we want you here at 6 o'clock to set up the tables and chairs, put out the literature, and make the coffee. I looked at Herb. I said, how long am I going to have to do that? He looked at me and said, well, we'll get back to you. And all that is well and good. I took the keys, but here's the deal. I didn't know how to make coffee. I never drank any coffee. I drank liquor. So for 1 week, I don't sleep. I'm picturing people drinking the coffee and dying, right? I'm at work at Ford, and I'm working, and I'm thinking coffee, right? Finally, Friday comes. I went down there, 6 o'clock, and all 4 of them old guys were sitting there. I'm thinking, they don't trust me. Of course they didn't. I wasn't trustworthy, right? So I set up the tables and chairs. This was a big meeting, 300 people. I got out the literature, set out the literature. They're still sitting over there laughing and talking. And now it's coffee time. We had 3 100 cups. Y'all know them big 100 cuppers? Now, if you look on the inside, there's a number 100 and a line. I went to college. I know how much water to put in them, right? So I got the water in them. Now the moment of truth. I'm standing there with the coffee basket in my hand, staring at it. And old John Cunningham called me over. And John said, "Hey, Kent." He said, "I don't know about you." He said, "But when I make 100 cupper," he said, "I put the coffee right to that line in the basket. How do you do it?" I said, "I do it just like that, John." Right? Because John knew I didn't know how to make coffee. John also knew I wasn't going to tell him I didn't know how to make coffee. I'm brand new in AA. What I think of me is based on what I think you think of me. I am all front and no back. There's no substance to me whatsoever. And he knew that. He didn't make me feel stupid. He didn't make me feel less than. He didn't make me feel different. Do I do that for the new guys at my home group today? I certainly try. I certainly try. Because the new people with less than 30 days that raised your hand earlier, I remember what it was like to be new. And I love that y'all, usually I do that from the podium. And the reason that I do so is because when I came to AA, I didn't know who would sponsor. I didn't know if you had 10 years or 10 minutes. How would I? I'd never been here. Right? So that information that was disseminated earlier with the raising of hands, that was life-changing, life-saving information. What you do with it is up to you. Okay? I was born in the city of Sandusky. I was the second of three boys. I was raised in a Christian home. I was taught the difference between right and wrong before my feet ever hit the grass in the front yard. I am the son of Pete and Evelyn Coleman. I had as fine a mother and father that have ever graced this earth. My mother was the highest ranking woman in Chrysler Corporation in the 1960s and 1970s and the smartest human being I've ever known. When I retired from Ford Motor Company, I was working in Dearborn, and they called us the best and the brightest. And I worked with some brilliant people at Ford. I never worked with anybody as smart as my mother. My mother was also the president of the Ohio Baptist Women's Convention. All them famous people that you would see on TV in religion and civil rights were her peers. Those people were in my house. My mother was a very powerful person. My father was a master sergeant in the United States Army. My father fought in the woods in Korea for this country. My father worked at General Motors for 42 years and never missed a day's work. My father coached every ball team we played on until we got to junior high school. Not a week goes by, I am now 66 years old, that somebody don't walk up to me at work or in the grocery store or somewhere in Sandusky and mention the impact that my mother or father or both had on their life. And they've been gone a while now. That was my mom and dad. I was in the drugstore a couple of weeks ago, and there was this elderly lady in front of me, and she turned around and she looked at me, and she said, "Ain't you Pete and Evelyn's boy?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Ain't you the one that was in all that trouble?" I've been sober 34 years, man. They got a long memory in Sandusky. I said, "Yes, ma'am, that was me." She said, "I hope you're doing better now." Good. I had an older brother and a younger brother. My oldest brother's firstborn son, everybody's favorite. My little brother was the baby, and my position was, what about me? When am I going to get mine? I can stand here today in all honesty and tell you I was never treated any differently than my brothers. Actually, I was my mother's favorite, right? But I adopted a victim mentality very early on, very early on. As a kid, I was shy, insecure, and afraid. My mother used to take us to the library. I learned how to read before I went to school. That's a huge advantage when you get to school, when you already know how to read. And what I found, James Brown made an album called Escapism. This is back in the 60s. Some of y'all don't know nothing about James Brown. But that's what books and movies and TV were for me. They were escapism. I could be somebody else, someplace else. I'm a comic book hero. I'm some guy in a TV show. I'm somebody else, someplace else doing something else. I was very uncomfortable in my own skin. Now, I used to think I was sensitive. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we referred to that as self-centered. But I was always uncomfortable around other people. As I said, I had an older brother and a younger brother. And I come from a football family. We play football in my family. My father played at West Virginia State. My Uncle Bo played at Penn State. I had two cousins that played in the National Football League for over 10 years. We played football. I come from one of them high school football powerhouses. There's probably 70 guys from my high school that played in the NFL over the years. That's what we do. That's what we were raised to do. My older brother was, he was one of them guys. He was very good. Anything he touched, my mother used to say, everything he touched turned to gold. He picked up a guitar one day. He had what they call perfect pitch. Anybody know what that is? You could put a record on and he could play it, and you could close your eyes and it would not be different from the record. By the time he was 16 years old, he was 6'2". He weighed 220 pounds, and he could run a 4.4 40-yard dash on a cinder track and tennis shoes. And people came to our home. Woody Hayes came to our home. Bo Schembechler came to our home. Joe Paterno came to our home. And my brother wanted to go to Ohio State. He always wanted to be a Buckeye. And so that was the deal. And I followed my brother everywhere he went. He took me with him everywhere he went. And that's funny because my little brother is 4 years younger than me, and we in our 60s, and we ain't been nowhere together yet. But my brother would lead a house, my big brother would lead a house, and he would grab me and he would say, come on, let's go. And so I was always around him. He was my protector. They used to call me Brian's little brother. I don't think nobody knew what my name was. I followed him around and I didn't say a word. I was around older guys all the time. I'm going to make a long story short. He was injured in a football scrimmage. We used to scrimmage a team called Massillon, the Massillon Tigers. That's where Paul Brown coached at. All them guys that coached at Massillon coached at Sandusky. It was a weird deal, and we used to scrimmage them a week before the season start. Bottom line is, in that scrimmage, he suffered a head injury. He collapsed. My mother was in Chicago on Chrysler business. She flew back. 9 hours of brain surgery that Monday. He died that Wednesday. That was in 1972. Is that what made me alcoholic? Absolutely not. Stop any car out on the street. Ask anybody in here, you'll get similar stories. People live, people die, tragedies happen. What makes me alcoholic is I have an obsession of the mind and an allergy of the body, and I suffer from a spiritual malady that only these steps could treat. And when I'm looking back at it, if you ask me, what it seemed to do as far as I was concerned as I look back on it, is it already increased the distance and the separation that already existed between me and you. I always felt like I was a half a step behind everybody else my age in the things that mattered. They were talking about going places I didn't go, doing things that I didn't do, knowing people I didn't know. And I always felt like a fifth wheel, right? And so after my brother's gone, every time I walk into a room, silence. The elephants in the room. It's 1972. No one knew how to deal with this. No one. And so I just felt more distant. My mother used to talk to me a lot. This almost killed my mom and daddy, and I ain't going to tell you what it did to my grandparents. Changed the culture of sports in our town, actually, this whole thing did. And anyway, my mother used to talk to me, and she would say, Kenny, God's been really good to you. You're going to have a really good life. You're going to be a service to God and other people. And I used to look at my mother like she just grew 2 more heads. And I used to say, I don't know where you get this stuff at, but I ain't got no desire to be a service to God, you or nobody else. If you want to know what I want in a life, I could tell you real quick. I want mine. I want to get it my way. And I'm going to need you to leave me alone while I'm doing it. And my mother would get that look on her face. You know that look mothers get on their face when they realize one of their kids is crazy? My mother would get that look on her face, and she'd go, where do you get this stuff? We didn't raise you like that. And I would just look at her and shrug my shoulders and say, if you don't believe my way is going to work, just get out the way and watch me roll. One of the gifts God did give me is I did well in school. I was not challenged by school. School was easy for me. I could read before I went to school. I was always placed ahead of people my own age and given things to do that they weren't given to do. And those things were easy to me. That's a gift. I didn't work for it. I didn't earn it. That was a gift from God. So my first sponsor, Bill Finley, used to tell me, son, anytime you in a room alone, all your enemies are there. And he was referring to my thinking. And I was sitting in study hall at Sandusky High School one day. I'm like 15 years old. And I had a visit from the enemy, my thinking. And here's what my thinking told me. These people in here are breaking their neck trying to get B's and C's, taking general math and science. I'm taking calculus, physics, fourth year Latin, fourth year English. I'm sleeping in class and getting straight A's. You know, it just might be entirely possible that I know everything. This was to become a pattern in my life. I had no evidence to support that thought as being true. I accepted it as a fact. And I left the room and took action on it. I actually went home and told that to my mother and father. I thought they ought to know. I was scared of my father. My father played football when they didn't have face masks. My father was in the woods in Korea, and I know what he did in those woods. And when I made that statement, my father came up off that couch, and I believe that man intended to do me bodily harm. I decided not to wait and see. I broke for the screen door, got out, and closed it. He was right behind me. My father looked through the screen door and pointed his finger at me. He said, boy, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to have a hard life. Don't nobody know everything. And I stood on that porch, and I looked through the screen door. I looked my father in his eye, and I laughed in his face. And that was a significant day in my life, because on that day, I closed the door. Everybody in my life became an idiot. My mother, my father, the preacher, the teacher, later on the police, the judges, the lawyers, the POs. If I don't know it, it ain't worth knowing became my philosophy of life. I'm selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed, and according to my mother, mean as a rattlesnake, and I had yet to take a drink of alcohol. I tell people I was the perfectly tilled soil for the disease of alcoholism, and all I had to do was water it, and one day I did. I got in the car with a guy that I played basketball with in high school. We had a really good team in the mid-'70s in Ohio, and it was my best friend's older brother. We all played up there, and he had the kind of life I lived in my head. Snazzy car, pocket full of money, ran around with the kind of girls I ran away from when I seen them coming down the hall. And I got in the car with Johnny, and Johnny looked at me and he said, hey, Coleman, you want to get something to drink? Now, I want y'all to know something. I have been warned about drinking. Alcoholism does not run in my family. It gallops. And I had been told we do not do alcohol. Well, look at your Uncle Ed, look at Junior, look at Bobby. I got one of them families. We have a family reunion. We get 2 shelters at the park. One for the good Christian folk and one for the rest of us. And I was over there with the rest of them. And I was given all the warnings. But if Johnny had said to me that day, let's go rob the carry out, I absolutely guarantee you I would have done it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I was addicted to approval way before I picked up a drink of alcohol. There's something in me that is missing. I can't describe it. I can't tell you what it is, but other people seem to be able to live with a sense of ease and confidence that I don't have. And I start looking for that. Can be looking for that 30 years sober too, can't you? We went to the drive-thru. We bought 10 quarts of Swiss Malt Liquor Bull. Why? It was on sale. The guy said, more bang for your buck. We dropped the convertible top on that beautiful Pontiac, quarter walls, baskets and spinners, cranked up the Parliament Funkadelic, and we rolled through the streets of Sandusky, and we drank that beer. And my life changed. I hear a lot of people describe the effect produced by alcohol when they start drinking. All I can tell you is on that day I started drinking, I started growing, and the world started shrinking. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I went from shy, insecure, and afraid to bold, confident, suave, debonair, and absolutely fearless in about 20 minutes. We went behind the Derrick Apartments where all the thugs hung out. I ain't said 5 words in public in the last 3 years. We pulled up, music's blasting, people surrounded the car. I looked at Johnny, I said, turn that music down, because there's a few things I want to tell a few people who are present here this afternoon that I've been wanting to tell them for quite some time. And I went around that circle of hoodlums and told each and every one of them what I thought of them and what they needed to do, in my opinion, to improve themselves. The reaction of the boys around the car, leaning in the convertible, hugging me, said, see, I told you. I told you Coleman, all right. One of the fellas, he doing a little drinking, he's loosening up. Bam, I connected a dot. When I drink, things change. How I see me changes, how I see you changes. Instant acceptance. Alcohol equals success, and you better believe I got it. We left from there, went over to home with some of them girls he run around with, I run away from. I had never been over there in my life, and I walked into that house like I had just paid the mortgage. I sat down at the dining room table. I made eyeball to eyeball, where I think is the prettiest girl to graduate from Sandusky High School in its 180-year history. I had never even breathed in her direction, much less said hello. And I looked up at her, and she looked at me, and I said, come here. And she got up and started walking toward me. Now, any sane human being would probably think to themselves, gee, Kent, if you wasn't so shy and scared, look what you could have done just by speaking up. Is that what I thought? Nope. If you knew, stay with me right now. Here's what I thought. If you had been drinking before now, look what you could have done. Look what does anybody follow it? Alcohol equals success. I immediately attributed it to drinking. Okay? Now, this is an honest program, to be honest with y'all tonight. When she got over there to me, I didn't have the faintest idea what to do with her. I don't think that far ahead when I'm drinking. But I watch a lot of TV. On TV, they go like this. So I did. And she sat down in my lap. And my life changed again. And the upshoot to that whole little story is very simple. On that day, alcohol did for me what I could not or would not do for myself. Alcohol became an answer for me, not a problem. Not a problem. What happened the rest of that day is the rest of my drinking story, so we can get out of it. Drink trouble. Now, there's a lot of people who come in here who ain't been to jail and had DUIs and all that stuff, and you don't have to. Jail is not a requirement for recovery if you didn't know that. But that is not my experience. If this here was a drink of alcohol and I stood here tonight and took it, a cop would drop right out of that light and land in the middle of this floor. What happened the rest of that night? I went in a blackout. I have no idea what went on the next few hours. According to eyewitnesses at the house, I came in the front door and started throwing up. I threw up a trail through the living room, through the kitchen, through the family room. My grandfather fell on the floor laughing. Funniest thing he ever seen in his life. I went in the bathroom, hit everything but the toilet. The next thing I remember is my mom, you know how they do. Come out here, clean up this mess. You know you've been drinking. It smells like a brewery out here. I staggered into the hallways in what later years would be my drinking uniform, my underwear. I got a hangover you can take out and look. I'm dying. I go in the bathroom. She's still screaming in the hallway. I close the bathroom door. I look through bloodshot eyes into the mirror, and this is what I said. Man, oh man, I cannot wait to do that again. Grounded for life is what was being discussed in the living room. And how they were going to carry that. I got grounded for life the first time I got drunk. Alcoholism is progressive. Most people, we start doing a little drinking. We drank a little bit on the weekend, and it started to creep into the week, and eventually, boom, right? Here's my story, boom. Right? There was none of it. So I had a meeting with myself in the bathroom. I love having a meeting with myself. I could figure out most anything that's going on and assign blame properly. And here's what I came up with. Okay, Kent, you got drunk. Yep, you got sick. Yep, and you got grounded for life. All this is true. But the reason, Kent, you got grounded for life is not because you got drunk. It's because you got sick. So what you got to do, come on, is learn how to drink without getting sick. Not drinking was never an option because alcohol equals pats on the back, girls in my lap. Alcohol equals success. And I was gone for almost 20 years. And just about everything can happen to a human being in 20 years happened to me, including death. I died in 1984 as a direct result of the use of alcohol and some of its cousins. Dropped dead over on the south side in the projects. Somebody called the rescue squad. They came, put the paddles on me. I come to, I'm in the cardiac unit of Providence Hospital. My mother's up there, father, my girlfriend, her whole family, Reverend Brown up there, the Catholic priest is up there. Chaos. Tornado in the lives of others. Full-blown hurricane here, baby. My mother telling the doctor, I done already lost one son, I can't lose another one. And this is self-inflicted. What happened to my brother was not. And I laid there in the cardiac unit, and I said, God, if you let me live, I will never drink again. And I meant it as much as I mean it tonight. I didn't want to die no more then than I do today. I stayed in the cardiac unit 48 hours till my heartbeat was stabilized. Cardiologist said, medical miracle. Heartbeat strong as a horse. Put him in a room, we'll observe him for 48 hours and let him go home. Put me in a regular room, okay? 2 hours out of the cardiac unit, if you knew, stay with me. Here's the thought that came to me. Whoo, that was close. But I'm all right now. This calls for a... My best friend came in the room. His name was Mark. Mark died of this disease when I was 7 years sober. Mark came and sat with y'all. We worked at Ford. Mark got fired at Ford. We was in the UAW. It's hard to get fired at Ford. Mark got fired at Ford. And Mark came to see me, and I told him, go across the street to Cliff's Carryout and get me something to drink. And he said, you're out of your mind. That's the reason you're in here. That's a guy who could see this, who died of this. And I told him, you're going to need me before I need you. Go do what I told you. And 2 hours out of the cardiac unit, I'm drunk. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? 5 years of college, I went to Miami of Ohio. I was supposed to play ball down there, got hurt. That never materialized. I was drunk down there for 5 years. They gave me a degree, I really think, just to get me away from there. I live like an animal at this point in time. I have no parental interference. And I had shakes by the time I was 19 years old. And I had set up headquarters at a bar called the Boar's Head Inn. And Tom, the bartender, he was kind of like my sponsor, I guess you could say. I got up one morning, I couldn't fasten the buttons on my shirt. I told Tom, the bartender, I said, I think I got Parkinson's. He said, you're 19 years old, you ain't got Parkinson's. He said, I'll tell you what you do. You get up tomorrow, you drink 2 shots of that old granddad you love. He said, your hands will stop shaking, you'll be fine. I got up the next morning, shaking like a leaf, drank 2 shots of old granddad, my hands stopped shaking. You know what I said? That man's a genius. My first sponsor, Bill Finley, said to me, dude, you notice that you never questioned the bartender, but you were surrounded by parents, counselors, professors, coaches, people who loved you and wanted the best for you, and all you ever said to them was, leave me alone, I'm grown, and I ain't hurting nobody, leave me alone. But you never questioned the bartender. Why is it that I'm always willing to listen to the people who harm me? Why is that? So I went to work at Ford to work a job I could have worked with an eighth grade education. Because they had something at Ford that a guy like me needs. It's called a union. And if you don't go to work like I don't go to work, and you don't do nothing like I don't do nothing, you need a union. And y'all know the deal, right? Swear to God, every Thursday, I ain't doing it this week. Friday, get the paycheck. Got to go to Pat's Tavern to cash the paycheck because guys like me don't have bank accounts. I walk into Pat's Tavern. Pat understood alcoholism. He put an 8-ounce water glass of Old Granddad and a Miller's beside it at my stool. I was proud of that stool. And he'd say, that one's on the house. You know why? Because I had his paycheck in my pocket. And we did this every week after week, month after month, year after year. 7 convictions for driving under the influence of alcohol in the state of Ohio. I've been in a lot of trouble with the law, and a lot of it ain't got nothing to do with what we're doing in here right now. I've been in a lot of trouble. At the end, no baths, no showers. I got a liver that's distended about 7 inches. And every time I take a drink, I cough all this white stuff up. My liver and my pancreas are ceasing to function. What I'm coughing up is pure alcohol. My body is now rejecting what my mind is obsessed with. I'm 32 years old and I'm dying of alcoholism. How dark it is before the dawn, baby. I came out of the Pump Lounge. It was Thursday night. And May 16th. And my brother was driving. I didn't have a car. I worked at Ford Motor Company and did not have a car. Yes, it is possible. You're looking at the man who pulled it off. And my brother had to take me to work. I done had 28 days off. If I'm, late now, I'm fired. I mean, my brother had to go to the bathroom. I went and got in the car to wait for him, and I had what they call a moment of clarity or a moment of sanity. There was a guy in Cleveland, six-pack Charlie Kitchen. He died 66 years sober. And Charlie Kitchen used to say that's the moment when God paralyzes the liar in you long enough for you to see the truth. And I sat in that car, and for the first time in almost 20 years, my head cleared completely, and this is what I saw. If you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. You better get some help because you can't do it by yourself, and you better do it now because you're running out of time. Out of nowhere. I tell people I was prayed in here, and I truly do believe that. I went home and went to my mother and them house where I had been banned from because I broke in there and stole $4,000 of my grandfather's money when he was in the hospital dying. This is the kind of son I am. And I said, can I use the phone? And I called my best friend from college. His name is Rich. I just showed Zach a picture of Rich today. Richard's a doctor, and he's a very, very powerful man. And he could drink me under the table, but he's not one of us. He got accepted to medical school. I was there the day he got the letter. He had a joint in this hand and a beer in this hand. He looked at the letter and said, I can't do both, put them down, and he ain't picked them back up because he ain't got what I got. And I called Rich, and I said, Rich, this is your boy, man. I need some help. He said to me, I've been waiting for this call for 7 or 8 years. Pack a bag, stay by the phone. I got you. He shut his life down for me. When I get a call, and I get them at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you know what I tell the guy on the other end? Pack a bag, stay by the phone. I got you. And for that, I am responsible. And I got places to take you. So my mother had to take me to JCPenney's and buy me clothes to go to treatment. I have a dime. I made enough money to take care of half the people in this room, and I have a dime. And my brother and his wife in the front seat, I'm in the back seat. He got me in treatment. Richard from Cincinnati. He got me in treatment in a place in Xenia, Ohio called Green Hall. It was at Green Memorial Hospital. He said, I want you close to me where I can watch, and if I don't like it, I'm going to put you on a plane and I'm going to take you somewhere and I'll stay with you till I can bring you back. So my brother and his wife in the front seat, I'm in the back seat, and I got a case of Genesee beer with me in the back seat. Now, I didn't know too much about treatment, but I had figured out on my own they probably wasn't serving no liquor down there. And I got 3 or 4 of them cold Jennies in me as we sped down the highway, and here's the thought that came to me. You know, I just may have overreacted here. It's not that bad. But I always say my father understood alcoholism way before I did, because he told my brother and his wife, he said, "I give you $100 if you don't bring that tramp back here." And so when I said, "Turn the car around," my brother said, "Do you have $100? I said, "No." He said, "Then you go into treatment." My first sponsor said, "That was God working in your wife." And got down there, and Richard put me in his car and drove me. He was living in Centerville. And he drove me to Xenia, and he bought me a $quarter Miller's for the trip. He said it was always your favorite. We pulled in the parking lot of that hospital. He put the car in park. I had that much left in the quart. He said, "Go ahead, dog, finish that quart, and don't ask me how I know it." He said, "That's the last drink you're ever going to take." That was May 17, 1992. I've not had another drop of alcohol or anything stronger than an aspirin since that day, and I would have never believed it possible. When I woke up the next day in detox, it was May 18, 1992. That was to become my sobriety date. I didn't know that that was going to be my sobriety date. I didn't know what a sobriety date was, and I didn't care. When I got out of detox after 4 or 5 days, and my liver was in bad shape, and they said, "You're going to an AA meeting tonight." You know what I said, don't you? For what? For what? AA? I ain't down here for that. Oh, well, you're going anyway. And that's how I met y'all. I was not ready for you. I was not. I was not ready for people who met me where I was, who did not tell me I had to do anything, who offered me help but did not impose it, who understood guys like me. And I spent 35 days in the 28-day treatment program. That'll tell you how I do treatment. 28 days, they called the Ford plant. They cut my insurance off. They called the Ford plant and said, "We don't think Kent's ready to leave the hospital." You know what they said up the plant? "We don't either." And they actually cut a check for me to stay another week. And I had a dictator sponsor that made me pay that money back. I told him I didn't ask for it. And he said, "I don't care, you're paying it back," and I did. But I came home, and my counselor, who was a 15-year AA member and a very active one, he's 49 years sober now, he lives in Florida, he's retired, told me, "If you don't go to a meeting tonight, you're going to die. You're not the potential, you are the actual." And I came back to Sandusky and I went to a meeting. It was Friday night. I went to that Venice group that later would be my home group. And I started to play a game. It's called Don't Drink, Go to Meetings, and Don't Do Nothing Else. If I put my arm through a window and cut an artery in my arm, I start bleeding all over the floor. I put a towel on my arm. I drive myself to the hospital. I run in the emergency room, bleeding to death. The doctor comes out and says, "Come on back, Mr. Coleman, we'll treat you now." I sit in the emergency room, bleeding to death, look at the doctor and say, "No, thank you. I'll just sit here." And I bleed to death in the emergency room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the emergency room. I've been watching people who attend these meetings on a regular basis die of untreated alcoholism for the last 34 years. The treatment for the disease I suffer from is a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. There's a lot that goes with that. Meetings, extremely important, right? Service, extremely important, right? But without the steps, I'm not interested in the other two, are you? 60 days, and as a time, I went to 3 meetings a day. I'm back in my mother and father's house because I lived in a spot, can't stay sober in a spot. I'm back at mom and daddy's house. My mother's dying of cancer. I'm helping my dad with my mother. I'm going to 3 meetings a day. I work midnights. I go to the club in the morning. I go to the Sunshine Group or Port Clinton Nooners. In the middle of the day, I go to a meeting at night. On Saturday and Sunday, I go to 4 or 5 meetings. I lived in me. Everybody knew me. Nobody liked me. 60 days without a drink, I picked up a piece of steel and tried to hit a supervisor in the head with it at work, and I meant to kill him. That's what I look like. 200 AA meetings, no sponsor, no steps, no group, no service. That's what I look like. I didn't get better. There was an old timer in Sandusky, Mr. Willie Witherspoon. He walked up to me one day and said, "Boy, sitting in the chicken coop don't make you no chicken." And he turned and walked away. Guys will come by and just take shots at me, you know what I mean? What do you mean I know chicken? The guy that took that piece of steel out of my hand his dad was in AA, and his dad died 50-some years sober. And he told me, he said, either get a sponsor and get help in AA or go drink before you kill somebody. I sponsor him now, and he's sober 30 years. 90 days in the parking lot at Daly's Pub in downtown Sandusky, sitting in the car, hands gripping the steering wheel, vibrating. Anybody know what that's like? Vibrating. I want to drink so bad. And I'm thinking, what am I, some kind of freak? I go to these meetings every day. I said my first prayer in that car, simple one. God, what am I doing wrong? Got a lightning bolt answer. What are you doing right? If you go to that many meetings, you hear it every day. Get a sponsor, read the book, work the steps, get a home group, get active, help others. I treated AA like a cigarette smoking, donut dunking coffee clutch. And I turned the key in that car. I used to tell people, I went to 300 meetings and it didn't do me no good. It did me a lot of good. Because when I turned the key in that car, I knew where to go and I knew who to go to. And the only reason I knew that is because I went to 300 meetings. And there was a guy in our group I mentioned earlier, John Cunningham. John started treatment in Toledo, Ohio. John got sober in 44. And he started treatment in Northwest Ohio. I didn't know that. And he said, there's a guy in Lorain, Ohio. He specializes in guys like you. And I had heard this guy lead, Bill Finley. He scared me half to death. I ain't going within 10 feet of him. He used to travel around the country doing big book. I don't know nothing like it. All right. And his home group was 700 people in a gymnasium in Lorain, Ohio, the Compass Group on Thursday nights. And I knew where he was, and he ran around with a guy named Kenny. And I heard Kenny speak, and Kenny was dynamite, and I thought, man, whichever one of them two I see first, I'm going to ask to sponsor me. I came in the side door of that gymnasium, packed with people, and I'm looking for them, and the two of them are sitting side by side, looking at me as I walk in the door. And I walked straight toward them, and I said, will you guys help me? Kenny took his toothpick out and said, well, he says, you in Lorain, I'm in Cleveland. You're closer to him than I am. So you start him on the steps and then send him to Cleveland and we'll clean up the rest of it. And that's how I started, right? And I did the steps, and I went to Cleveland. I went to Thursday Men's. That's where my grand sponsor, Neil, was, who was sponsored by Dr. Bob. Neil actually lived with Dr. Bob and Ann for 18 months. He used to call me Smiley. My nickname before I came to AA, my nickname in the street was Poison. My mother said that when you walk into a room, the lights dim. I was very, very sick. And I didn't smile when I came to AA, and Neil used to call me Smiley. And I said, why you call me that? He says, because one day you will. He said, one day you will. Bill told me, bury yourself knee deep. No, scratch that. Bury yourself shoulder deep in this thing called AA so you can't teeter and fall. And I've been shoulder deep in AA from that day to this. And they took me through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as I try to live them in my life today. The black print on the white page in the blue book. We ain't came up with nothing new. The book tells me, do something, I do it. If it says say a prayer, say a prayer. If it says go here, I go there. If it says write this, write that. I got to make amends to my mom before she died. He told me, not until I tell you. He said, I'll tell you when. I started to make my financial amends and start getting that stuff in order. I had given up on life. I ain't never going to have nothing anyway. Why do I need to pay all this money back? He said, shut up and do what I told you. So I did. And, I owed my mother and father a bunch of money. And I wasn't worried about that because I was at them meetings where y'all said, I offered to pay back mom and dad. And they said, no, we don't want your money. Just stay sober. My mother and father missed that meeting. I told my mother, I said, I know I owe y'all a lot of money. And she said, yes, you do, and I want my money back. She said, go see your father. He has numbers. And he did. He had numbers. And I got to do that. My father didn't respect me as a man. And even after my mother died, I continued to pay my father that money. And my father said, you can stop it. I said, no, I'm not. And he understood. But I made amends to my mother, and I had a big speech planned out, and the only thing I come up with was, Mom, I'm sorry. Y'all know how that go. My mother beamed at me. And she said, Kenny, we forgive you. She said, all I ever wanted for you was to have a good life and be happy. She said, promise me that you'll stay with those people in AA. They were able to do for you what we could not. They were the answer to my prayer. I promised her that I would, and I have. But I'm going to tell you something. The reason my sponsor didn't let me make amends to her in the beginning was because recovery's in your feet. It ain't in your mouth. My mother saw me go to all those meetings. My mother saw me bring my first sponsees to her house, sit in her dining room, read the big book, and talk about God. My mama saw that. Not that, oh, Mama, I'm sorry. She always used to say, we know that. My dad died, I was 18 years sober. I got married when I was 3.5 years sober. I have 2 daughters. My father was here. He saw the birth of my daughters. They loved their granddaddy, and good God, he loved them. It was just ridiculous. I could take them kids over to his house, and they could set fire to his living room, and he'd sit there and go, ain't they cute? My oldest daughter said to me one day, Dad, is granddaddy your daddy? I said, no, he is not. I said, that is not the same man that lived in the house I lived in. This granddaddy is a fictional character. But y'all check this out. Today, I'm granddaddy. And my granddaughter can burn my house down. I don't give a damn. I will give her the matches. I went back to school. I got an advanced degree. I went into management at Ford. And I became the paint coordinator for the E-Series vans worldwide. And after that, I became the material control advisor for service part distribution to dealerships and depots in North America. And that's what I was doing when I retired from Ford. Don't talk to me about what you can't do in here. Don't talk to me about what you can't do. All things are possible with God and Alcoholics Anonymous. I got divorced 20 years sober, moved to Las Vegas. At that time, Bill had Parkinson's and lost the ability to speak. Kenny's wife was very, very ill, and Kenny's health was starting to decline. And I moved to Las Vegas, and I got Bob to sponsor me. Bill said, get Bob, because you're going to need somebody. You're making a big change in your life. I went out there to actually work at a company that was based out of Michigan. Zach's been there. Didn't you take me over there? Yeah. Anyway, so I moved to Vegas, stayed there a couple years. My daughters just weren't old enough. I was missing too much. I came back to Ohio and been there ever since. Today I'm with my girlfriend Janelle. Zach knows Janelle. She's a member of this fellowship. And I got to thank her for once again allowing me to come across the country without the benefit of adult supervision. Y'all have heard my story. Y'all realize I require adult supervision. I sponsor like crazy. I sponsor people around the country. I used to want to sponsor long distance, and then I had a couple people. Then I had a 5-year requirement, if you ask me, and then COVID came, and the online thing started. And then it was like, here's what I came to understand is they either gonna do it or they ain't. It don't matter if they sitting in the same. I got guys sitting in the same room with me won't do nothing, right? Either they're gonna do it or they ain't. So what difference does it make, right? So I do people that's long distance the same as I do people that are in my hometown, right? And I have a Tuesday night Zoom for my sponsees that has changed. It has changed a lot of things. We only did it because we couldn't get out, and it's still going on now, and it's become. I just thought it would be a good idea because they're all over the country and they don't know each other. Now they're like kinfolk. They travel, they go on vacations together, they go to conferences together. When somebody goes from California to Florida to work, the Florida guy picks them. It's an incredible experience. And we are focused on living this way of life in the square that we're in just today. So I still work. I enjoy it. I'm a corporate buyer for a big company, and I have fun doing that. And it's me, Janelle, and the dog, Mia. And I live where I want to live. I live with who I want to live with, and I live the life that hopefully God will have me live. I make as many mistakes as everybody in here. Thank God that we have steps to deal with those, don't we? Right? I told Zach, the one thing that I've never stopped doing here, and I'm telling you, I'm standing here now telling you, I've made every mistake you could make in here. Relationship-wise, financially, I've done some stupid, fear-driven stuff in here. The one thing I've never done is I've never gotten away from you. I've never had a period where I slacked off. I've stayed with you. And you've walked with me through your experience, through the problems that I have. Every day I tell my sponsees, you walk out of the house, you're surrounded by need. Every day. How much of it do you see? How much of it do you see? A kind word. You're doing a great job to the girl that's new at the cash register at the grocery store who's struggling. Hey, you're doing a great job. How you can change the trajectory of another human being's day and attitude with a kind, simple word that takes 3 seconds. Not no big thing, not no change the world. The little stuff. How many times did you say please and thank you today? Did you give your boss 9 hours work for 8 hours pay? Did you thank your wife for your dinner? Did you hold the door open for anybody? How you living? My dilemma is not a lack of information. My dilemma is a lack of power. If you're new here tonight, the simplicity of Alcoholics Anonymous. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that he trust in God and clean house. Intensive work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. 6 words: trust God, clean house, and help others. And that's the message. Has been since June 10th of 35, and it is today. If I said anything that helped you tonight, thank God. Do not thank me. Of myself I am nothing. My strength cometh from my Father in heaven. If I didn't say nothing to help you tonight, guess what? There's some more meetings tomorrow. God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. God could and would, if he were sought, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows, clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.